the countdown. All right, Tina, I'm assuming we're ready to go live. We are live now.
We are.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone. I'm Amy Spowert, the President and CEO of the National Aeronautic Association. Founded in 1905, the NAA is the oldest national aviation organization in the United States. We are a 501c3 whose mission is to oversee the advancement of the art, sport, and science of aviation and spaceflight. Our 119-year-old passion is exposing and elevating aviation and encouraging public understanding of its impacts and importance. To learn more about the NAA, please visit our website. Members of the NAA received advance notice of today's webinar and were able to sign up early for this limited opportunity. This will be the same for future events, so sign up now. Welcome, everyone. This is going to be a great conversation. We're going to discuss how these cutting-edge organizations build an inclusive environment uniquely poised to change how aerospace does business. From attracting the best talent to keeping that talent, these forward-thinking companies created to advance aviation industry's cutting-edge technologies are also paving the way by fostering a new workforce culture. Without further ado, allow me to introduce our panel. Becky Tanner joined Wisk in 2019 as the Chief Marketing Officer and now leads their People Operations and Product Designs team. In her CMO role, she oversees everything from branding and communications to go-to-market strategy. Before joining Wisk, Becky led marketing efforts for Liquid Robotics, an autonomous ocean robotics company. She is a member of Chief, an association of female executives. When not working, Becky is the mom of 2 teenagers and tries to get 10,000 steps in a day, which is hard given 5+ hours of daily meetings. Thanks, Becky, for being here. Lauren Hartland is the Deputy General Counsel, Policy and Regulatory at Joby Aviation. She previously worked with fellow panelist Amber at Zipline, and before that as General Counsel and Director of Safety and Regulatory Affairs for Gamma. She's also an NAA board member and served with me on the Women in Aviation Advisory Board. Lauren received her BA from Tufts and her JD and MA in bioethics from Duke. She's an instrument-rated commercial pilot. Welcome, Lauren. Amber Harrison is the Aviation Regulatory Counsel at Zipline. She has spent most of her career in the aerospace industry, from drones to aircraft and component manufacturing. When she's not leading regulatory and compliance programs, she's chasing around her 2-year-old daughter, flying helicopters. She's a commercially rated helicopter pilot, in case Jim Viola is on this webinar, or training as an aerialist and contortionist. All right, Aisha, you have to follow that. Aisha Minter is a seasoned aviation professional currently serving as flight instructor for Part 135 operations at Wing. She is responsible for implementing Wing's flight training program primarily in the United States and supporting global operations. In addition to being a flight instructor, she is a pilot in command for delivery operations, maintaining her proficiency and expertise in the field. Welcome, Aisha. And Tasha Perkins, whose brainchild was this webinar, by the way, we have Tasha to thank for this, is Archer Aviation's Chief People and Partnerships Officer. In this role, she has scaled the company to over 700 employees and established partnerships enhancing Archer's capabilities, such as Stellantis, NASA, United Airlines, and the Department of Defense. I don't know why that was so hard. She is a PhD in industrial organizational psychology, and in her free time serves as an adjunct faculty member for various universities. When she's not at Archer, Tasha is a mom to 3 kiddos and has a lot of energy. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you're here. We're going to start today's discussion with a poll question. Go ahead and throw that up, Tina. According to the FAA Women in Aviation Advisory Board report, Breaking Barriers for Women in Aviation Flight Plan for the Future, what profession has most significant gender gap in aviation? Senior leadership, professional pilots, maintenance technicians, and air traffic controllers. Fascinating. Going to give everyone a moment to go. Excellent. Okay. Lauren, as a former member of the advisory board, would you share the answer to our poll and explain why the board's work is essential? Also, please tell us about any growth in the data.
Thanks, Amy. It looks like a lot of folks may have had a chance to look at the board report from those responses. The largest gender gaps in the aviation workforce are in professional pilots, senior leadership, and maintenance technicians. We kicked off this month of March with the Women in Aviation Week, which takes place annually to honor the world's first female pilot's license in 1910. I know, Amy, you like to frame things in terms of historical context. Over 100 years later, by 2020, the percentage of women private pilots has only reached 7%. And although the total number of women holding commercial pilot certificates has increased over the last 60 years, the representation of women as a percentage of the total has changed at only of a rate of about 1% a decade. Roughly 5% of airline pilots and only 3.6% of airline captains are women. Looking at the senior leadership stats, only 3% of aviation organization CEOs are women. We're particularly fortunate to have one leading this webinar. And for maintenance, the percent of women hasn't even reached 3%. Over the last 15 years, the percent of women in maintenance technicians has increased at only 0.7%. Indeed, in most functional specialties, over the last 60 years, the introduction of women has been largely stagnant. But there is reason to be optimistic, and I think that's why we're all here today, because by understanding the problem, including the information that's been synthesized in the reports by the Women in Aviation Advisory Board and also the Youth Access to American Jobs in Aviation Task Force, sort of the corollary organization to the board, we can better understand how the underrepresentation of women in our workforce impacts the workforce, why it's the case, and we can be intentional about change. So this next generation of aircraft, like Joby's and those of my colleagues on this webinar, has the potential to unlock opportunities to welcome more people into our industry who have not typically seen a career for themselves in aviation.
Thanks, Lauren. Somber news, but yeah, I think everybody on this, in this, you all give us reason for hope for sure. Tasha, the board highlighted significant barriers, and we had a long conversation about that. These barriers, come about when women are entering the field, when they're in the field. Could you talk a little bit about the barriers women often face in their aviation journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, as you mentioned, the barriers to entry. And because I'm a psychologist, I really like to think of the classic psychological study that many of us have probably seen, where someone puts a picture of a pilot up on a screen and they ask you to raise your hand if it's a male or female. And inevitably, historically, majority of the population will raise their hand and say it's a male. And what we've seen over time is that that's definitely improved, where folks are saying both male and female, kind of 50-50. But the research still shows that it takes them longer to raise their hand for a female. So there's still a hesitation in the mind in terms of thinking through, oh, wait, now I know this can be a female. I should say it's a female. It's still not something that comes on autopilot, as an example. And so when you think of why that happens, there's really two reasons. One is that it's been designed by men. So what you see on the screen is something that actually does look familiarly masculine. So a pilot's uniform, as an example, it looks very masculine. And then the other thing that you start doing as a human is you start thinking through quickly, who do I know that falls into that category? And because most of the individuals that you know fall into that category are men, then that leads you to believe that it should be a male. So if you think back to those very primitive mental habits or schemes that we have in our brain, it becomes obvious what some of the barriers to entry are. And that is one, as I mentioned, it looking like and being designed as a masculine type of environment, whether that's training practices, uniforms, et cetera. And then also compounding that, as we all know, we're already dealing with underrepresented groups being suppressed, and particularly females, with pay disparity and things of that nature. And getting a commercial pilot license is expensive. So when you're already dealing with some of those aspects of underrepresented groups, and you're dealing with a heavily male-dominated environment that's designed to look masculine, and there's not enough women in leadership roles to help change that gender balance, then it's compounding. So even as you enter into the workforce, it's harder to retain the women as they're looking at things like family work-life balance. 38% of women, the research shows 38% leave due to work-life balance, as you can imagine. So those are some of the things that I know we're going to talk about through this journey on the webinar of how the new form of aviation can change some of those things. But yeah, that's how the report highlights the initial barriers, and then as it compounds, as you sort of move up and don't get those promotion opportunities for all the same reasons I discussed.
Thanks, Tasha. That was really well done. A lot of information. So our second poll, what percentage of the aviation workforce is female? So far, only people who, okay, good. I'm glad, wait, okay. Good, I'm hoping, okay, none of the above worrying. Sorry, I'm very interested to see where this goes and how many folks get it close. Give it a little bit more time here. Okay, so yeah, most of the people who answered got it right. The answer is 20%. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, women's labor force participation in aviation women's labor force participation overall was about 57% in 2022. So 57% of the nation's workforce is 57%. There's a huge disparity that there should be more, 20% is incredibly low. We all know that the Boeing forecast over the next 20 years is that the industry will need 130,000 new civilian pilots, 132,000 new maintenance technicians, and 170,000 new cabin crew members in North America alone. That's just the United States. Clearly, there's not enough men, there's not enough people of any one gender or ethnicity or background to fulfill that. So we need to attract a diverse workforce in every term of the word. Amber, Zipline has made 160,000 educational material delivery to students in Ghana. Does outreach like this factor into your attraction efforts?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, if you talk to a lot of zipliners, as we call ourselves, if you talk to a lot of zipliners, a lot of them are at Zipline because their families have been positively impacted by the work that we're doing at Zipline. I just think of a couple of different stories that come to mind, but individuals whose families were saved by that bag of blood that we were able to ship over in the nick of time in Ghana. And so absolutely, the work that we're doing, people are seeing that and saying, wow, I'd really like to be a part of that, and feeling like it's close enough to them that they are able to touch it, to achieve it, to reach out and make that connection. So absolutely, it's made a huge impact.
Amy, you're on mute.
Thank you so much. I kind of lost my way for a minute there. Give me just a second. So Aisha, women represent less than 8% of all pilots in any category. According to Sisters of the Sky, African American women represent less than 0.5% of all pilots. You're a unicorn. Can you share a little bit about your personal journey and how Wing attracts women?
Of course, Amy. And I got into aviation actually because my family is in aviation. Aviation is in my blood. My grandfather on my dad's side was the vice president and program manager for the Black Hawk program at Sikorsky. And my father flew for the Presidential Airlift Wing and retired as a 777 captain at United. So I had no choice. Aviation was going to be the route that I went to. Out of the three individuals for my parents' kids, I decided to go aviation. So I went to Embry-Riddle and I graduated from there. Originally, I wanted to do manned aviation. However, I saw this opportunity back in 2013 where UAS was really starting to get its foot in the door for commercial entities within UAS. And so I decided to change my major. I took a chance on it, and it allowed me to land some pretty amazing opportunities within this industry. But what I would say for Wing specifically when it comes to attracting women and why I ended up ultimately landing there 4 years ago is the fact that we take that opportunity to understanding that wherever we deliver, we also have to make that general makeup of the individuals that we are delivering to. So representation really matters. If you look at our core leadership, you can see that opportunity and that representation. I have that opportunity to see Black females within the board space, which you don't typically see within aviation itself, but also in our small niche within UAS. So we take that opportunity and bring it all the way from top down. So you'll always see that opportunity within our engineering to our flight operations, where females do take up some of the general makeup of Wing.
That's brilliant. What a way forward. Hey, Becky, if history tells us that the aviation system hasn't attracted the workforce it needs, what are companies like Whisk doing to attract the talent you need?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And obviously we're here together today because as the stats that we've already covered in this conversation, we have some work to do. And Whisk is certainly not excluded from that group. We have some work to do on this front too. So one of the things that I am really proud about Whisk is our approach to product design. Our mission statement is safe flight every day for everyone. And when Whisk considers everyone and the definition of that, that includes women and that includes people with disabilities. So we have spent a lot of time and attention on customer research as it relates to a broad array of different types of individuals to make sure that they feel included, safe, and comfortable when it comes to engaging with our product. So I just want to mention that first and foremost. I think that's really core to our beliefs as a company. As we start to make some changes across the company as it relates to how do we attract the workforce that we need, it's really important to Whisk that we have these diverse perspectives. As I shared with you earlier before this webinar started, we've never done this before. This industry is new. We're all doing this for the first time together. The diversity of thought and the diversity of finding solutions to the problems, we need that. And that only comes to Whisk and this industry by including everyone and making sure that they have a place at Whisk to participate. As it relates to some of the other things that we're doing, of course, there's things that we're doing from a recruiting perspective and trying to be visible and accessible to others. But I will say we have some work to do there. We want to be more visible. We just recently participated in a STEM conference in Baltimore. I love this. It's called BEA. And BEA stands for Become Everything You Are, which I think is really beautiful. So that is something that we participated in this year. Obviously, Society of Women Engineers is an important event for us to have some focus at as well. But one of the things that's really unique about AAM and coming to cities is the opportunity to engage the communities in which we hope to have services and the ecosystem that is going to help us provide those services. So that allows us to have conversations with local officials to talk about how do we best reach the local constituents and help provide awareness, understanding, and also start to talk about the future potential of the jobs. And so I think that's what's really exciting about this industry is, if we all get to successfully achieve the vision of this, where we get to bring advanced air mobility to cities around the world, this is going to explode the number of opportunities in new ways, reaching a much more diverse workforce. So we also just literally, we're in the throes of it now, but we've greatly expanded our summer intern program. Summer interns is so powerful. Not only injecting that new thought and that innovative thinking and people who have way more energy than those of us who've been working for over 25 years. So they're going to bring that energy to us and those diverse perspectives. And hopefully they decide to continue on with WISC at the end of their journey too this summer.
So I'm going to ask a follow-up question, and I'm going to ask for a show of hands from any of the panelists, because I think internships was something that we really hit on in the board report, the importance of that and that exposure and those opportunities. Becky, would you say, and again, if anybody else wants to answer this as well, please just raise your hand and let me know. Is there something unique about the way WISC is doing internships that may be different from how we have traditionally thought about internships?
This is it. Well, yes and no. We literally posted our internships and promoted them as broadly as we can to hopefully attract the attention from a diverse body of interested students. And I think really being open-minded as we interview these candidates and make sure that we're looking for diverse perspectives, I think is really important, because that will only make not only the summer intern community stronger in itself as a unique group, but also us as the leaders at WISC.
Thanks. Does anybody else want to answer that question? Tasha, I saw you come off mute.
Yeah, I'm happy to add. So one of the things that we've done, and it's not just with internships, we do also have an internship program this summer, but we've actually started doing it just broadly as a company. We're using a staffing firm that only recruits female candidates. And so essentially that staffing firm is supplying us with really qualified females that frankly, it may not fit exactly into an open role that we already have. But that's what we're able to do, is be able to see these amazing women come through the pipeline and sit down and have real conversations to say, where can they potentially fit, and or do we create a role, or how do we, that's really ultimately how you have to start injecting more women into the system.
I love this so much. Oh my gosh. So what I'm hearing so far, there's some themes emerging, and I can't wait to see how that continues on through our conversation. Is you all are providing unique opportunities. You're encouraging, I heard this especially from, what Aisha was saying, authenticity. That's a priority for all of you. And this dedication to prioritizing, not just, and we always want to be clear, we're not looking to add women or minorities to these organizations just for numbers, just for the sake. These are qualified individuals. The OBAP has to put out a letter saying, we promise all our Black pilots have done the same thing that all the other pilots have done. Clearly that this is very exciting what I'm hearing that your organizations are doing. So I'm just going to carry on here. In testimony delivered to Congress in 2021, Dr. Becky Ludy shared that many factors negatively impact the recruitment and retention of women in aviation. And I know Becky's on this webinar, and I didn't tell her she was going to be messaged. So somewhere in Houston, there's somebody jumping up and down for the mention. So what do y'all think? Which negative factor ranked the highest? And I know I skipped around a little bit on this one. As we get through here, I'm going to throw it back to Amber and see if she has anything she wants to add. Let's give them 2 more seconds and see. Fascinating. Fascinating. Okay, so the answer to this question is economic factors. Let's focus on retention and how we deal with these things. Amber, do you have anything you want to add?
So yeah, just going back to attraction and retention, as I mentioned, the work that you're doing is a key factor of that, right? People hear about the amazing things that your company is doing, and they want to be more involved and want to be more interested. But if the number one blocker to all of this is financial factors, then you really have to start asking, well, how do we help break down those barriers, right? And there are a lot of organizations out there that are really working hard to provide financial aid to folks, be it, first one obviously comes to mind is the Whirly Girls. As a helicopter pilot, they do a lot of really great work in bringing females to the world of helicopters. But there are a lot of other organizations out there, but as a company, I challenge everyone to kind of think about this, like how can you work to break down that barrier a little more? Is it donating funds to a scholarship fund? Is it thinking about how you can creatively use interns or help elevate folks that are facing that barrier? And so there's a lot more that I think that we could be doing as an industry to unlock some of that. And I will have to say, I am a little bit surprised that work-life balance or family life balance wasn't number one, because I feel like that is often a real blocker, especially for females that have a family, and especially when we're talking about pilots and crew that are gone for days on end and traveling around the world. So so that was pretty surprising to me, but interesting. So thank you for
No, of course. Thank you for the
question.
pivot. Yeah, of course. I think there's so much truth in what you're saying. I mean, my kids are now in college, and so you think my work-life balance would be easier, but it's actually almost harder because I don't have the time carved out for them. So they need me right now. They're doing schedules for next fall. I don't have time for that. I'm announcing the Collier Trophy winner. I'm managing a staff. I'm doing lots of stuff. And in the meantime, there's events on the weekend that require my attendance, and my parents are aging. How do I get to travel to them, take care of what they need, and the judgment it comes from equally male and female. And it's like we don't give one another or each other the grace. Lauren, does it surprise you that women polled found the cost of entry a limiting factor? And could you share a factor or barrier in recruitment that Joby has created a unique solution to?
Yeah, thanks, Amy. First, shout out to data guru Becky Ludi. I highly recommend all of her amazing workforce reports. They shed a lot of insight into the changing factors in year to year. And a quick aside back to a comment that our Becky made here, I just wanted to say that I loved Whisk's white paper on accessibility. It was amazing. So back to your question, Amy, I don't think I was surprised that cost was a factor, but I think the board's research gave me personally, and I hope everyone who reads the report, better insight into all the different barriers and how and when they impact women. The report cited a unique survey of professional women not working in aviation, and that survey found that 70% of people who responded had never even considered our industry. And the most common reason for that was a lack of familiarity of the options available to them. And another reason was not knowing where to start. So I think this helps us understand that we need to create concrete paths into aviation careers that provide real economic opportunities to address those cost factors. And an example of one effort at Joby on that front, it was recently announced that Joby was awarded an FAA Aviation Workforce Development Grant for a project that will provide new aviation maintenance technician career paths. The program is intended to make aviation maintenance careers more accessible, including to more women, people of color, veterans, and underserved populations. The program will enable trainees to begin apprenticeships, paid apprenticeships, immediately after completing their light sport repairman maintenance certifications. And this will allow aspiring maintenance techs to earn wages while they're continuing to train towards an A&P, an airframe and power plant certificate, and grow in their career at Joby. It will also include an advanced air mobility apprenticeship rotation, which will help to ensure that we're training the next generation of maintainers for our next generation of aircraft. And this program and the FAA's support for it is an example that demonstrates Joby's commitment not only to advancing innovative technology, but also deepening the talent pool for an innovative future workforce.
Nice, thanks. And Lauren, is Joby's efforts and use of this grant different from how things have been done in the past, or is there anything you can pinpoint that makes it a little bit more robust?
We are sort of a unique recipient amongst the folks who have typically received these in the past. So this is a sort of a new and novel approach for new and novel technology, and we're really appreciative of the FAA to support the program and excited to help bring more maintainers into the community and help them learn about the new technologies that we're hoping to put into operations.
Fantastic. That's great news. Aisha, same question for you. Is there a barrier to entry that Wing has uniquely addressed?
Yes, one of our biggest things is because we're a last mile delivery company, the community is very important to us. So visibility within itself and the communication that we provide within the communities that we reach is very important. Most of the time where you'll see companies falter is they start at the collegiate level and just work on that specifically. Wing is very a big proponent in making sure that we reach middle school to elementary school students, right? Just this last week, we had middle school students look at some of our nests that we have out here in the Dallas area, as well as our flight operations center. So it's very important to us that we not only integrate ourselves in the schools systems that we're in currently right now, but also nonprofit organizations that focus on that development in early ages. The reason for this is because they're going to make our general makeup of our workforce within the next 10 to 15 years, right? So we have to start early. That is where you will see this uptick in females participating in the UAS industry. So you will see us not only at the collegiate level, but nonprofit organizations will go to their conferences. We participated in Afrotech last year, SHEP, and we are now also participating in the Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals for their Aviation Career Education Academy. We also reach out to Virginia Tech as they're one of our close partners, and we utilize their drone camps during the summer for middle school and high school students. So building that pipeline early and providing those internship opportunities is very important for Wing to produce that diversity.
Thank you. I can see Virginia Tech from here. That's awesome. That's great. You'll have to let me know if you're nearby because we can hang out. That'd be great.
Most definitely. Yes.
Yeah, that'd be great. But the cool thing about starting early, and this is throughout our report, is that especially in elementary school, kids struggle because teachers aren't equipped with the capability and the advanced learning, or the learning that they need to teach true STEM components within the elementary age students. It's really hard, and it's not the teacher's fault. It's just not part of what they're taught in school. So, I think any opportunity that we have as an industry to get aviation introduced in elementary school before girls self-select out, and while kids, especially middle school, still are afraid to take risks, because by the time they're in middle or, later middle school or high school, they kind of, they get too cool for school kind of thing. So we want to make them do crazy things before they're, afraid to do them. Hey, Tasha, has Archer found any ways to lessen or eliminate any of these common barriers, and would you tell us about them?
Sure. So I think from my earlier response, you can probably imagine I like to think of it systematically, of thinking through the whole system, entry all the way through. And when I think of it that way, and also looking at the research, one of the reasons women are attracted to the profession is because it's adventurous and exciting. And so even thinking about it from the marketing initiative up front of reaching them at a younger age, I love what you just said, Amy, how you said before they're too cool for school. But what if, eVTOL and urban air mobility gives us this opportunity to market in a way that excites them when they're too cool for school, right? And so I think I shared with the group that Archer has done a lot of potentially unique and maybe what some might think a little crazy out there type of marketing with music videos, et cetera. But that really is the idea, is to get younger folks excited about something, to even gauge their interest enough to get them thinking about the technical aspects. Like you've got to get them hooked a little bit. So that's part of the strategy there. But then sort of thinking about through the system, we talked about the cost piece. One of the things for us, I'm super passionate around this because getting a PhD and having paid for it myself, which a lot of our aerospace engineers have as well, I often had to make real decisions through life around, can I afford to buy a house? Can I afford to do all these things? Because I have a mortgage payment for a student loan, right? And so a lot of the things that we've done and looked at is instead of, or having a lot of the traditional stuff like 401k match, will the company also match tuition reimbursement? Will the company also match student loan payment? So folks having an option, we call our total rewards program Meet You Where You Are, but it really is, where are you in life and how does the company need to support you, and sort of offering those choices so that you don't have to make that sort of choice when you're a young professional not thinking about retirement yet, because you're just trying to make it and figure out how you can grow in your career. And then followed by, I talk a lot about the opportunity we have here with my colleagues on the call around redefining what aviation looks like for work-life balance. I mean, we are going to be, as an air taxi company, just normal typical hours as a pilot. You're going to be, potentially just working 8 to 5, 8 to 6, whatever that looks like, where you can go home and be with your family at night, which is one of the reasons that I think it's been challenging for women to want to be in those types of positions. So again, we'll be able to tap into groups and of women before that may have not considered it because of that aspect. So I think there's a real opportunity to redefine that. And it, as I mentioned, it fully goes into even the uniform aspect. We should even be asking ourselves, do we need that? And if so, what does that look like that accompanies and addresses all of these different aspects that we're talking about here? So it really is looking at it systematically all the way through. And that's definitely the way Archer's approached it from the start.
What a fantastic answer. Wow. I mean, I'm still a little bit hung up. I want to go back to Afrotech, but we can do that later because I've never heard of that. That sounds like fun. But and that systematic approach is definitely how we addressed it in for the board report. Becky, I would love to hear about how Whisk is using innovative marketing to share its brand. And does this affect how you attract your talent?
Yeah, thank you. And I couldn't agree with what Tasha said more. And I do think, I know I'm biased, but I do think our communications and the marketing materials that we share with the world can be quite influential and be educational and motivating. I do want to mention, so several months ago, we went to a community event down in Long Beach, California, and it was called the Festival of Flight. And it so happened to be their 100th anniversary. And so the community of Long Beach, from babies all the way to people who are retired, came to this event and got exposed to what we're doing and our broader industry. And just being kind of front and center and accessible like that allows people to start thinking and daydreaming about all of the future opportunities that aviation is going to create in the future. As it relates to our marketing efforts, one of the things that's really important to me and to the rest of the company is that the Whisk brand is approachable, we're transparent, and viewed as trustworthy. I think making sure that the brand feels safe and for everyone is really important and helps us with attracting people as well. We like to do video interviews that spotlight our people. I think highlighting how awesome our teammates are, from women to people of color, I think is an important part of our communication strategy. And we look to do more there, because once you start to see somebody that looks familiar to you, you start to recognize, okay, I see myself in that person, and I can consider something like this too. One of the things that I think this new industry is doing is not only flipping things on its head in terms of workforce hours, like Tasha was referring to, pilots, you get to be at home at night. So I think just the opportunities are being flipped on top of themselves in terms of changing the game, and the previous requirements that we've set are all now going to be reset. But one of the things that I believe in is you can join this industry without being an aerospace engineer. This industry needs accountants, HR professionals, finance people, facilities people, all of those types. And I'll tell you, this is my first aviation company, and I've just been enamored by it. I've learned so much. I understand so much more now. And I love this industry. So I think that we can attract and pull people in on all disciplines. And so I think that's really important.
That's music to our ears. And it's so important, right, to talk about all the different roles in aviation, for sure. So now that we've talked about barriers, we've talked about attraction. Now, let's talk more about retaining those and what we're going to do to keep those. According to data compiled by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, in 2020, the United States was the only country without a national paid parental leave policy, and one of the few without a national family caregiver or medical leave policy. True or false? I can almost remember, Lauren, the page on our report that has this graph. Going to give everybody a couple more seconds, and I'm going to throw the first question out to Amber. Okay, no surprise there. I think everybody gets it. Amber, Zipline's mission is centered on equal services for all. How does that translate to Zipline's team, and tell us about your retention efforts?
Absolutely. So we are lucky because our mission is so service centric that it's part of our DNA. Zipline was originally started as a company focused solely on delivering medical supplies to rural villages in Africa. And so when you start there, it's kind of hard to then say, well, we're not going to give our employees like the same type of opportunities or thoughtfulness as what we've done for our customers. And so thankfully, like I said, that's a part of our DNA. And so some of the places where that shows up, one is obviously being able to work remotely. I personally work remotely. It was never something that I ever imagined as a corporate attorney to be able to get unchained from my desk. And it's revolutionized my life, quite frankly. And it's enabled me to take time for my daughter when I need to, or for dentist appointments or those things that come up. And with that comes the ability to have flexible hours. If I need to pick up my daughter early from school because she's sick one day, logging in later once she's asleep is not a problem once, as long as I'm able to get the work done. But having that flexibility and that understanding that, okay, Amber's focusing on her family and her time, but she'll get to it afterwards. That's been a really critical piece of this. Unlimited vacation is also something that Zipline offers, which sounds outrageous and crazy at first, but it actually works pretty well. One, because we're all very mission driven and excited about what we're doing, and so we're not just taking vacation all day, every day, although that sounds really lovely. But having that time and really being able to take that time for yourself. I got to go on a helicopter adventure over the holidays in Guatemala. And I was able to come back to work just fully refreshed and excited about my life. I recently did some advanced helicopter training at the Robinson factory, and took time off of work to do that. And so it gives me that flexibility that I need to not only work my best during my job, but also keep me sane in this crazy world. And then finally, like I said, again, with an honorable mission does come a lot of passion and excitement for what you're doing every day. And so when you're really thinking about the impact that you're making on the world, if someone didn't die today because they were able to get they were able to receive the package that you sent, that type of thing, it really also kind of helps put fire in your soul for what you're doing. And that's also something that I was really looking at in my career, especially when I think taking time away from my daughter, which is one of the most important things in my life. It's got to mean something big to me. So yeah, thank you for the question, Amy. I hope I answered it thoroughly for you.
No, that's great. I'm like, oh, like, I love it. And I'm like, I really hope Jim Viola's on here, because you're like hitting all the vertical aviation stuff that he loves, Robinson and da 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 da. So
I'm working on it.
yeah, no, it's great. It's great. And I mean, what it is, I like the way you put honorable mission as well. I mean, you're sending medicines and things to people. I mean, it's awesome. Tasha, how is Archer addressing the challenges of working at a company with ambitious goals and having that personal life? How do you do it?
Yeah. One of the things when I first came to Archer, we made a decision early on that we would be mostly in person. And I'm a mom of 3. So, what I like to tell candidates, especially, is that should not be misconstrued as inflexible. So, your kids are sick, whatever, we fully support. I think for me personally, that really comes from the leadership top down and that culture that you set. And one of the things that I always love sharing about Archer is, the management team all has younger kids. And in fact, we kind of get together and enjoy learning about each other's family. And that drives a culture down that says, even though we do like to be in person, we fully support and understand the lifestyle that you have to live, managing young kids, et cetera, older parents. We are going through that as well, many of us. And so I think we really do a good job at setting that culture. But the other piece goes back to what I talked about before. I think 2 other things come to mind. One is, then once you have that set, you have to offer options that give people things that they need to be able to support that. So as I mentioned, around meeting people where they're at and having things around offering childcare if you have certain things that have to happen. We've had situations where when we have company parties, we offer full childcare as an example. So if it's after hours, everyone can come. So really kind of thinking through what are the mechanics of those hardships that people might face, still having to live within that culture. And then the last thing that comes to mind for me is, again, what we've talked about, flipping things on the head of what does work-life balance really mean systematically when you're doing the next generation of aviation. And I think there's obviously the opportunity we've all talked about where it could just look very different, even though you have to be in person. You can be home every night in the city that you live in. So yeah, that's what comes to mind.
Everyone is just blowing me away with these answers. I'm like, wow, just wow. I mean, you guys really are you are changing the world. Lauren knows me, and that's my goal. That's all I want in my life, is to change the world of aviation. That's all, just that. But you all are really doing it. It's fantastic. So Becky, one of WISC's values is bringing people in. Can you share the importance of having diversity and diverse ways of looking at things, and how important that is on your team, and why is that essential to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think simply put, having a diverse workforce can be a competitive advantage. And as I already said earlier in this talk, none of us have done this before. This is a new industry. We're embarking on completely changing the future of aviation and creating a new segment. And so having the diversity of thought is really the only way to solve these problems with a unique approach. We need all of that thinking at the table to help us really keep moving forward. You know, there's new challenges every day. And we have a wonderful collection of people at WISC that not only have the aviation experience, automotive experience, but a really broad array of experiences. So for us, diversity is, you know, people of color, of course, and women, but also diversity of experiences, because I think that adds to the collection of ideas that are being put forth for us. We've also taken an approach of creating a diversity statement of understanding. So really putting a stake in the ground about how this is important to WISC. And so that's something that we established in the last year as well.
You know, Becky, I love what you're saying. I'm going to ask you a follow-up question. I hope you don't mind. Because diversity plays such a central role in what you're doing at WISC, and you have a clear intent with that, what's your response to people who may accuse you of having diversity for diversity's sake? You know, adding girls only to make up the numbers, and only adding, you know, people of color because, you know, what do you say to those people?
Yeah, well, we've actually never been accused of that. So knock on wood, hopefully. I think really we mean it when we say having that diversity of thought and making sure that we're attracting all types of talent to the company is where it starts, right? And then making sure that our entire workforce has a safe and inclusive environment is important. I know this conversation is really about women and minorities, but we also need to make sure that our men feel supported and that they can support the women in our company too. They are our advocates, they can be our champions, and they can be side by side with us with making this change and attracting that talent.
And I think that's really the point right there too, is that we're looking for diversity of thought and sharing a diversity of opportunity. And I'm so happy that WISC hasn't been on the receiving end of that, because the Women in Aviation Advisory Board is still on the receiving end of those.
Yeah.
So it's always good to be armed. And that's why I think it's important to share. If someone always has a good response to those kind of accusations, it's nice to share the wording so that we're armed with that. So when people say it, because it's always off-putting, so it's nice to know what to say back. And maybe I'll throw that out to Tasha later, because I bet you she has something up her sleeve, because she has a knowing look in her eye. But I'm going to go to Aisha next because I want to know what a winglet is. I
want
must
to
know what a
one thing
winglet.
really quick, Amy.
Yeah,
I think
Becky.
for us as leaders and
Yeah.
for our male colleagues, we should be watching meetings and the dynamics in the meetings. And if you see somebody who may have a diverse perspective being quiet, we should be confident and comfortable inviting them to share their opinion. So I think that's a really important thing for us to always keep top of mind, is to make sure that we're pulling in those voices too actively if there is some resistance to do so. That's it. Sorry, Amy, to jump in.
No, I love that. I love that. And I'm sorry. Does anybody else have anything to add? I'm so sorry. Thank you, Becky. That's great. Aisha, you got to tell me what a winglet is and how wing cultivates belonging and kind of, you know, helps everybody feel part of the, what did you say earlier? The nest.
The nest, yes, yes. So a winglet is what we actually call our employees at Wing. And what it really stems from is we're the individuals that really roll up our sleeves to push forward our goals and our mission with integrity and respect. This comes with also our hiring philosophy as well, where we reshape how we move goods from place to place through the autonomous delivery that we provide in our services. And in order to do this, we really build a workforce that represents our global communities that we serve. So winglets come from different backgrounds, a unique set of skills. To our point, it's not just about the pilots that are in the room, it's also the engineers, it's the communications team, the legal team, everyone. We call it cross-functional collaboration. We are constantly collaborating together to solve a problem. And for winglets, it's very important for us to have those outlets that aren't just about the work that we do. So we really foster that in our employee resource groups. We have a multitude of employee resource groups and clubs. You have like a golfing club, rock climbing clubs as well, but the employee resource groups really foster our EID initiatives specifically. And that allows us to create a community that's not just about the work itself, but creating more of an environment that's very inclusive and allows individuals to think more outside of the box.
Fabulous. Oh my God. Yeah. Lauren, thank you. Lauren, would you please tell us Joby's vision? And would you share with us how Joby fosters an inclusive workplace?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Let's talk a little bit about, oh, sorry. So it probably goes without saying that a lot of the folks who are drawn to Joby are drawn to the vision. We're passionate about the opportunity to work to create a future where quiet, emissions-free flight is an everyday reality, saving people time and opening up enormous new possibilities. And I think that that's a point that I think Tasha and Becky have already brought up, that we're working on really exciting new opportunities that can bring folks into our industry that haven't previously seen missions or roles for themselves. One of the things that's unique about Joby is that we're a highly vertically integrated business. We're designing and certifying our aircraft. We plan to operate it in the US. We have our Part 135 air carrier certificate. And as I've already talked a little bit about, we also plan to maintain it. So this level of vertical integration creates a lot of exciting career opportunities for Joby employees to move within the organization. For example, a Joby manufacturing tech could move into a career as a Joby engineer. An employee interested in flying could become a Joby pilot. And as a number of folks have already touched upon, we think that the type of AAM operations that many of us are going to develop will enable professional pilots to work and stay in their communities, and that these types of operations have the potential to welcome more pilots into our industry, more women. But of course, this doesn't just benefit women, it benefits everybody. The board addressed, and we've already touched upon, not only the importance of recruiting and retaining talent, but also advancing talent, because advancement into leadership roles is really essential to driving culture change within an organization and within aviation writ large. Joby's vertical integration and our career development pathways also provide the opportunity for folks to move up, including with internal training. At Joby, 80% of all of our current leads were promoted from within.
That's crazy. That's awesome. You guys, I'm so super excited. Like, this has gone way better and achieved the goal of the webinar so much better than I could have dreamed. I know it's getting to the top of the hour. Some people will jump off, but I do have another fun question for the panel that I'm going to throw out. If you have to jump off because you have a top of the hour meeting, I just like to thank our panelists and ask them to give everybody a wave, but I want you guys to all stay on, please. We thank you for being here, but if you can stay, I'm going to ask them all kind of a fun question, because up until now they've represented their organization. which is fantastic. But I'm going to ask them a personal question because I love hearing that Becky's new to aviation. Can I just have a show of hands from the panelists of who never dreamed they would work in aviation? Okay. So yeah, so Amber and Aisha are the only two who knew aviation was going to be their landing spot. So I think a lot of people come to aviation from other places. And now you've been in it for a little while or a long while, and you've seen how the system works. I would like to, and I'll call on you each. I would love to know if you could snap your fingers and change a barrier and change the world. Change the world with the loss of that one barrier, and then we'll work on the other ones. But change a barrier for women in aviation, what would it be? And I'm going to go around my screen, and Becky's right next to me, so I'm going to start with Becky.
That's a good question. So obviously, short-term news is kind of top of mind for me. We need to start covering the positives of aviation more. Usually when aviation is in the news, it's because there's something scary or something has gone wrong. We need to do better as an industry of highlighting all of the different positives, the different roles, the technology that's happening. I have been in tech my entire career. And yes, I'm at an aviation company, but I'm still at a tech company. And so I think, these things are all blending together now. So I also think we need to create more heroes. We need to have more heroes and that are commonplace in the public eye of what it's like to be in the aviation industry or be a tech person in the aviation industry or an accountant, what have you, right? We need it all here. So I think for me, it's about highlighting more of the positive versus always over rotating on the challenges. Certainly covering those or learning opportunities, and we need to do that, but we need to have some more balance. And then I think creating some heroes for people to look up to.
I love that answer. It's like you had that prepared. That was such a dream answer. Thanks, Becky. And if we have time, I want to know who your heroes are, but I want to make sure everybody else has chance because we'll probably do this for about 10 minutes before we sign off. Amber, the same question to you. Magic, change the world, go.
First off, where can I get some of that magic dust? Because there's a lot that I'd like to sprinkle everywhere. The first piece, I think it kind of touches on what Becky was speaking about, and it also touched on a concept that Tasha had mentioned earlier, and that is this assumption that a pilot is male, right? Or that, if you see a picture of a pilot, you just assume that that's a male. That's something that I've really been working on very hard with my daughter. We read books about female pilots, and I feel like if you asked her that question, she would say it's a female. And I think that's where it starts, because there's that concept of like, well, it's a male field, so I don't want to go into it anyway. And so I think if you can catch that with the original mindset of a 2-year-old, I think it can help open that up as a world of possibilities to young girls, especially. I think the other piece is absolutely that work-life balance that we've talked about. I think that's a struggle with any full-time job, frankly. But I also feel like there are challenges within aviation that could be addressed, be it a different schedule, be it additional flexibility, or just an understanding that, hey, we're all human and we all have things outside of work, be it a family or be it just your own personal interests to maintain your sanity. And so just ensuring that we're protecting our outside time, and doing it in a way that's accepted by our society, by our workplace, culturally, whatever. Just having people accept other people. That would be my magic sprinkle power.
I like it. Good sprinkle. Thank you. Tasha, you're next.
Yeah, I feel like that was perfectly teed up, because what I was going to say is I would have a lot more women in leadership roles, and obviously throughout the organization, because as I like to say often to my boss, a lot of human behavior in the workplace goes back to being on the playground in childhood. And that is, if you kind of think about how you felt, as groups were leaving you out on the playground and not playing with you at recess, and that feeling that sort of generated, that's what generates for a woman, as an example, walking into a male dominated place that can't find, or an underrepresented group that can't find connection points. And it's that initial feeling that stems from very early on, as a child, as Amber was referring to. So Amber's point, coupled with what Becky and I have said, the heroes, sprinkling them throughout the organization, gives women an opportunity to find, and people of color to find, folks that feel like them, to even feel comfortable starting to have more dialogue. So that would be my magic wand.
We need to find some magic dust for all of you. Aisha?
I think something that Becky was really putting in there is heroes. Heroes are very important. And for me specifically, I want to see more people of color within this industry, particularly Black females. If we look at the Sister of the Skies, they're talking about 0.5% of pilots, traditional manned aviation pilots. We're not even looking at the niche within UAS specifically, right? So for me, that visibility at a young age is very, very important. I had the opportunity to meet my first Black female pilot that was in the UAS industry at a conference back in 2012. And that's what really kept me within this industry alone. So if we have that visibility and see individuals like us within these career fields, it goes a very long way. Just like Tasha was talking about, just having that opportunity to lean on someone and see that we can do it is so important, and it drives the message home.
So I'm thinking now I'm like, do I have any peers? Do I have any CEO peer executives in the aviation industry who are Black? And the remarkable Tamara Holmes comes to mind. But I'm trying to think if there are any. I'm sure there has to be, but maybe there's not. Do I have any counterparts of color? Interesting. Well, you're still friends with the person whom you met in 2012, Aisha?
Yes, I am. And coincidentally, she is also part of Sister of the Skies. But also, when I look at Wing too, just the proposition of staying here, our chief financial officer is a Black female. The head of legal counsel is a Black female. So for me, that's very important, specifically that I do see leadership that looks like me, right? If we're talking about last mile delivery and providing services for all, we also have to have that within our leadership.
Well said. Well said. Lauren?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Aisha. The opportunities, the role models absolutely have to be visible. And this is something we just have to do better at as an industry. On the subject of heroes, my dad is one of my heroes. He was a military pilot, and after that he became an accountant. So shout out to accountant heroes, and shout out to any of Joby's accountants if you're on. Thank you all for keeping us in line. I'm gonna cheat, Amy, and I'm gonna pick culture. Because culture is perhaps the biggest single impact, and it underlies most, if not all, of what the board recommended. The board's barriers timeline model, which you can see in the report, it underscores a point that I think, Tasha, you noted earlier, is that aviation was built around prescribed gender roles, and that's no one's fault, but originally it was designed with men in mind, and women may be allowed, but they're not always supported throughout the system, and often are challenged to find a way to fit into the system. But we are talking about a new era, a next era for aviation collectively, both with newcomers and the traditional aviation members. And so we have the opportunity to be bold. We have the opportunity to ensure that aviation's culture for the next generation values and welcomes women and indeed all talent. So I would snap my fingers and implement that right now.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And way to cheat. We like that cheat. That cheat stays. That cheat will change the world. Okay, so with 1 minute left, I'm gonna call on you again, and you have to tell me who your hero is, because this is the thing I wanted to know more than anything. I want to know who everyone's and they don't have to be in aviation. They have to be the person who has inspired you most in your life. But you can have two. You can have life inspiration and aviation hero if you want. Becky, I'm gonna go with you again.
Okay, well, I just, the person that comes to mind, and it's not aviation, but it's just a female leader that was pretty unique and stellar for her time. And this is maybe a random response, but this is the name that comes to mind, as a former Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright. She was, for a long time, the only female in the room. So she broke down barriers. She also was one of those heroes for women, that women could go to some of the highest levels. And so I think she's important. But one thing I do want to say, that automotive is much like aviation in being male dominated. And you have a female CEO of Mary Barra, the CEO of GM. I think she's also an example for us in the aviation industry, where a female leader can come in and lead a traditionally male audience too. But I'd have to say, like, Madeleine Albright comes to mind. And of course, the always great choice, Michelle Obama, is just so articulate, so strong, to the point, and fierce.
Amber, fierce.
All right, I've got two, and they're very opposing figures, but my first one is Dolly Parton, and my second one is Tupac Shakur. Dolly Parton is just unabashedly female. She's proud of who she is. She's loud and in your face and just beautiful, and she owns it, and I love it. She's also from a town that was not far from where I was born. And so, I kind of understand where she came from, and she's, on this amazing star that has done so many amazing things in her life. And she's just an inspiration to everyone. And then, like I said, Tupac Shakur, he represents just, again, kind of that concept of coming from nothing and really clawing your way to the top with an idea and a passion for, the people that he represented, and the people that he wanted to kind of help pull up from their bootstraps. And so, yeah, Tupac and Dolly.
Only they could do a duet.
Right, I know, missed opportunity.
Opportunities for sure. Tasha?
Yeah, I have to copy what Lauren had said earlier. My dad, I know it sounds sappy, but my dad actually did just pass in October. So it's been quite a challenge for me. But my dad was in aerospace manufacturing. And so it's just kind of funny where I landed, because never thought I would be in aviation, like we talked about. But I think what made my dad my hero for me is really grounding me to, no matter how important you may become in your professional life, no matter how much money you make, no matter what, you are no different than the person that's taking out the trash. You are no different than, and so really I try to approach everyday life like that and build a culture like that here at Archer. And I think that's just really important to me as a society and as a human. So that's why he's my hero.
Thank you for sharing, and I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Aisha?
We actually talked about both of them prior to this, so I'm going to repeat again. But the two that come to mind for me is retired Lieutenant General Stacey Harris. She's known me since I was a little girl, but the feats that she has taken within the military to become the first Black female to reach the rank of Lieutenant General, and just being one of the only Black females in the room when it comes to the general talk, is a huge feat that she has accomplished. And just her overall demeanor, she's smooth and calm, and she really just wants everyone to succeed. And I love that about her. And then the other one is Carol Hobson. She comes from around where she was a journalist, became an exec for some of the big brands like L'Oreal and the NFL, and decided to change her career literally into aviation, right? So, and she wrote a book about Bessie Coleman, and a lot of people do not know the history of Bessie Coleman, who she is, and how she defined aviation for Black females. And Carol Hobson's whole mission in life currently right now is to get 100 Black females to become pilots. So within that self, it just holds a place for me. And she was also my instructor, so I can't say anything else than that. Yeah, yeah.
Whoa, you were taught by the best. That's
Yeah, yeah.
awesome. Wow, that's so cool. Thanks, Aisha. Lauren?
That's hard to follow. So I already mentioned my dad. I think if you ever have the opportunity to have a call with me without a background on, you'll see that I have an RBG pillow in the background of almost all my calls. So as a female attorney, I think look up to RBG as one of the women who achieved dismantling a lot of the barriers that have allowed me to be where I am today. And on a personal level, my cousin Amanda, who lived her life with more joy and good humor in the face of overwhelming adversities. So something to remind you to find things to appreciate every day, and to enjoy the opportunity to work with such wonderful people on such important things. Two of my heroes, but I'm really fortunate to have a lot of people who have had really positive impacts. Amy, who's your hero?
Oh man, Greg somewhere, my husband is laughing somewhere because I'm very good at asking everybody, like I never want to necessarily answer them myself. I don't think there's any greater impact on me professionally in the whole wide world that I cannot articulate how great the Women in Aviation Advisory Board has been for me. Those 30 women are my people, or 29 women are my people. We are a gang. We are all sponsors of one another. Nobody talks poorly about each other. We might butt heads inside, but to the rest of the world, we are loyal and we are fierce, and we want to make some changes. And I think the board as a whole are definitely my hero. I don't know, and it wouldn't be complete without all the different characters involved. So I couldn't ask for a better panel. I couldn't be more grateful for this time together. You all have, I barely even think I needed to provide a script. I think you all hit the nail on the head. You really are changing the world. You are changing the culture and the face of aviation. You're what this industry needs. I applaud you all, and I'm so grateful that you're all in places. And I'm glad that Lauren and I can extend the invitation to expand our group and have you in the fold of the Women in Aviation Advisory Board. And hopefully we can all continue to learn and grow from one another. I thank everyone for tuning in and watching us and being part of this today. Thank you very much. And I hope you have a great rest of the day. If panelists would stay on with me, that would be great.
Thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Amy.
Yeah.
My pleasure. Tina, can you stop recording? Thank you. Oh, we're